who we are, the decisions we make, our identity, our values, everything that we have done in our life up until this point has resulted in you being in exactly your current situation. Whether that is a position of being in survival mode, or whether that's a position of every day you are absolutely thriving, or if it feels like it's sometimes a mixture between both of them things. In this video, I'm going to be covering in a little bit of detail each area of both. And I call these the 1.0 grappler versus the 2.0 grappler. And I'm going to be talking in a little bit of detail about each of those. And it would be very interesting to see whether this gives you an awareness on some of the things that you are doing without even realizing, and also awareness on when you are doing things in a great, optimistic, confident manner, which gets you out of survival mode, why potentially you're bouncing back and falling back into old habits. So it's a massive awareness piece with a key critical solution at the end of it. So what I'm going to be covering today, and I'm going to be covering in detail, the 1.0 grappler beliefs, habits, and how a 1.0 grappler will typically problem solve in a 24-hour period. I'm going to also talk about the 2.0 grappler and how they believe, what their beliefs are, what their habits are, and how they problem solve, how they live their lives as well. Because usually it is just a reframe on the same thing. For example, a 1.0 grappler may feel nervous. However, a 2.0 grappler may feel the exact same physiological response, but they call it feeling excited. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of the flavour that's going to be talked about in this video. We're also going to talk about the creature that is always in the back of our mind that really, really wants to keep us in survival mode. For those that are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Paul Green and I run the Longevity Program, which is an online coaching service for grapplers that want to improve their longevity for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And we do that by building physical resilience of the joints. And I work with blokes with multiple injuries. Sometimes they're not injured and sometimes they want to recomposition their bodies, but predominantly grapplers, right? However, I do have a few people coming in from different disciplines. I'm a purple belt myself. I've got 7 years of grappling experience, and yeah, former paratrooper, ex-special forces support group operator, and I've trained, thousands of elite soldiers over the past decade. Okay, right, we have the 1.0 grappler, right? Survival mode. Doesn't ever think long term, constantly lives in the moment, can barely think about anything else other than this week, and in some cases can only ever think about today. Tomorrow's a completely new day. They really, really struggle being proactive, constantly living a reactive life. They don't lift, they don't do any physical exercise or train off the mats because they don't believe it is actually useful. They see eating nutrient-dense foods as a diet and something that is not enjoyable or something that is not beneficial because they're living in that, that minute, that millisecond, that 30-minute period. Their physical capacity as a result of that is on the low side. They're basically how much work they can do, whether that is in an individual session or whether that is in a week or whether that is in a month. Their physical capacity is massively reduced. It's on the low side. And what that leads to happen is, maybe 2 sessions per week, maybe 3 sessions per week is their max, and then they have to rest or not do any jiu-jitsu. And they believe that it is just the way it is. The martial art is just set up that way, and there is nothing they can do about it. Very fixed mindset, do you know what I mean? And they don't really have any long-term view of themselves. Like, if you were to ask one of these blokes that is into that, where do you see yourself next year? They would literally look at you and go, I can't even begin to think about beyond next week, because they're that overwhelmed. Overwhelmed for multiple different reasons, whether that be, professional life, whether that be a busy family life, whether that be hobbies, jiu-jitsu. They've just got a lot of information coming in, and that results in them never having any sort of, positive self-belief for the future. Their response to injuries is always reactive. They always react to pain rather than strengthening the joints to potentially reduce likelihood. They rather not do that. They would turn a blind eye to things, and if something happened, then they would react. They're not interested in the idea of increasing the capacity of the joints in order to potentially improve the strength of the joints and the resilience of the joints. They're just like, you know what, if it happens, it happens, whatever. And when it does happen, they go all in on addressing pain rather than trying to address the root cause of the issue, because they don't realize that the pain is just a response to the problem. Do you know what I mean? It's a response to the problem. It's not actually the problem. The pain isn't the problem. The pain is just a feeling. The real reason the injury happened is because of a deficit on one of the ligaments, on a couple of the muscles, or whatever. It's a capacity problem. Their response to adversity is really probably okay on the mats, but they will just bury their head in the sand. A lot of these lads will not admit that they're struggling. They will just bury their heads in the sand and remain in a state of denial. So that's generally the 1.0 grappler on them bullet points. However, it goes a little bit deeper than that. We've got habits as well. So you've got mindset and you've got habits. So the mindset, I've touched on a few of the mindsets there, but habits, passive habits, talk about them. Passive habits, thinking that eating something absolutely terrible is fine. Drinking alcohol is fine. Smoking is fine. Thinking all these, it's all right. My granddad used to do it, or it's just making, they justify terrible decisions, and very frequently, and they really struggle saying no to other people. They like to have a certain. They would rather do something very, very bad, very unhealthy, than be painted in a bad light from somebody else. It's a really, really bad way to live your life, because you're constantly victim to the personal standards of others. And just to wrap up the 1.0 grappler, if you were to ask a 1.0 grappler, somebody that's in survival mode, what are your current personal standards? They wouldn't be able to answer that question. Personal standard is your current beliefs, how you identify yourself, how you view, the things, the values in which you pride yourself in doing every single day. They don't have them. And by living that life, you end up having an absolute creature that is very strong, very potent, basically dictating the way that you live your life. And this word here, right? This creature will basically is running rampant in your brain. Everything that you do whether it's watching porn, staying up late, eating pizzas and curries and takeaways on a night, drinking booze, taking drugs, sleeping in, snoozing your alarm, playing online games till 2 o'clock in the morning, all of this stuff is literally feeding the creature. And the creature, all the creature cares about is this millisecond, I want maximum hormones. I could not give a fuck about tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, because I'm living now. I am in survival mode and I must eat as much calories as possible of the worst crap possible in order to survive, because I might die in 5 minutes' time. I might die of starvation if I don't eat that food. That is literally how a lot of men, most men on the mats, are living their lives. And it's the creature, they're listening to the creature. And the creature is designed to survive, make you survive. It is not designed, and it's also designed to oppose anything that you do, any endeavor that you do, in which results in you thriving. That could be learning a new skill. That could be developing your physical capabilities. That could be taking risks. The creature does not want you to take any risks because you might die. That might be a social risk. That might be asking a woman on a date. It might be messaging a woman on the internet. It might be eating a healthy meal. The creature puts all of this in the same box and thinks that if you do those things, you might die. So it doesn't want you to ever be uncomfortable. And one of the really frustrating things about this is we are very regularly uncomfortable on the mats. However, they really struggle with transferring that skill that we've learned on the mats out into the real world. One more thing about the creature that lives within our brain. You know, I've got a creature running rampant in my brain every time I walk past a pizza shop. But his voice isn't very potent. It's still there, and it's still there in every day. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just smiling at it. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, yeah, obviously I want a pizza. Obviously I want to drink Coca-Cola. Obviously I want a beer. Obviously. Who doesn't? But I'm not going to because it's fucking poison. One thing about this, right, is if you choose to, incorporate a few new habits into your life, physical habits, I'm going to get out of bed at this time and I'm going to have a cold shower and I'm going to eat a really healthy breakfast. I'm going to go to bed and get 8-9 hours sleep per night. I am going to eat a certain meal before jiu-jitsu. I'm going to start weightlifting 2 times per week. You are, at that point, still an absolute creature that has just embodied a couple of new physical habits, but you still have the beliefs of the creature. You still think eating nutrient-dense food is a diet. You still think weightlifting is boring. So there's layers of beliefs, and there's layers of ways that you problem solve that are just keeping you in such a terrible state. Honestly. And what's beautiful about this is that because a lot of it is mindset and it's character and it's belief systems, it can easily just be reframed. Like I said there, it's layers. It's not just one belief. It's not just believing that, eating nutrient-dense foods is a diet. That's one. Reframe is it's just nutrient-dense foods. But there's a lot of them things stacked up on top of each other because you have let yourself get into a position where the creature has just purely infected your brain into making survival-based decisions multiple times a day. And it's probably got to the point now where you don't even realize you're making them. It's like there is a cake there and you just decide to eat it because it's there. It's like, what? Why is there a cake in the house? And if you are living like a creature, everybody around you will live like a creature. Your missus will live like a creature. Your kids will live like creatures, making excuses about, how the world is against you. And do you know what I mean? This is your mindset, and you're leading the family. So the pattern lives on through generations. Awful business, gentlemen, right? So that brings us from doom and gloom onto the 2.0 grappler, right? And the 2.0 grappler lifts pretty much every week and potentially does a little bit of cardio, walking off the mats every single week. They pride themselves in eating nutrient-dense foods because they don't want to feel like absolute fucking arse. The 1.0 grappler eats shit, and they don't know what it's like to actually feel great every single day. From start to finish, feel amazing. The 2.0 grappler eats nutrient-dense foods regularly, so they feel amazing. They have consistent energy, great recovery from weightlifting, great recovery from jiu-jitsu, and everything is good. And they're actually looking for, small changes that they can make into their diet to make it even better, to make their energy even better, to eat maybe swap certain berries out for, goji berries, for more antioxidants to make their body function better. They're always looking for the next little thing that they can do to have a massive impact on their energy levels, because to a 2.0 grappler, energy is literally the most important thing. Physical capacity is massively increased. 2.0 grapplers, they can train pretty much every day if they wanted to. And they also are very cautious on, energy, their output during jiu-jitsu sessions, because it's about the whole training year. And, if they're not improving their physical capabilities, most weeks they're doing something wrong, and they have the mindset of, okay, I'm having a bit of a flat week. You know what? I should probably dial it down. Whereas the 1.0 grappler will be always trying to send it. 2.0 grappler thinks long term and thinks, well, if I want to do as much jiu-jitsu as possible, I need to actually calm things down a little bit and lift weights. Also, they have a clear vision on where they want to be long term, whether that is competition wins, whether that is, their physical goals, whether that is lifting a certain amount, whether that's being able to sprint a certain speed or jump a certain height. They have a crystal clear view of themselves in the future, whether that is simply being absolutely shredded, grappling 6 times a week, and just being an energetic, profound family man, a leader. Do you know what I mean? Like, clear view of themselves, and they have a plan to execute that. They respond to injuries with a smile, and they just look at it as an opportunity for growth, and they learn from it, and they're just like, it is what it is. This actually is part of doing a pretty intense combat sport, and they just use it as an opportunity for learning. Response to adversity, again, they pride themselves in adverse situations. That in a lot of scenarios, they are actually able to perform better in adverse situations than they would in comfortable situations. An adverse situation for a 2.0 grappler is comfort. They are the complete opposite. The 1.0 grappler lives in comfort. The 2.0 grappler lives in adversity. Obviously, they have a bit of comfort every now and then because they're getting to sleep for like 8 or 9 hours. But their day, they love adversity. It keeps them fucking sane. Now, before I move on to the next one, like me, a few months ago, like 5 or 6 months ago, I was a little bit of the 1.0 grappler and I was a little bit of the 2.0 grappler. And it was causing me some huge dramas. So maybe you are a little bit of the 1.0 and a little bit of the 2.0. But this video is to basically give you an awareness that the reason you are where you're at and the reason that you struggle to keep momentum going for more than a couple of months is because of your own dirty thoughts. how you problem solve, how you live your life, and your passive habits. And I say that, it's a little bit funny that I'm saying dirty thoughts. It's because this creature that's infected your brain is all about survival mode, all about this second. And you've let him gain strength. His voice is potent, and you listen to him. You don't have to listen to him. Every day you live like the 2.0 grappler, every 24 hours, that voice gets a little bit weaker. The main mistake most men make is they will do a physical training program. They will eat nutrient-dense foods for a period of time, and they will snap back into the cesspit of survival mode because they never actually thought and had an awareness that it's their character and their beliefs and how they problem solve every day that actually allows you and enables you to do this consistently for the rest of your life. So they never actually believed that they were eating nutrient-dense foods. They believed that they were on a diet. They never actually believed that a training program is something that is going to allow them to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the rest of their life. They just thought they were getting a little bit stronger for a short period of time. So what happens is they just snap. They never actually changed their character. They were still a creature that is just eating healthy. They were still a creature that was lifting a little bit of weight. And they never actually addressed the 1.0 grappler mindset. So, snapshot back to where you started. Get a little bit of results, bang, back to where you started. Get a little bit of results, bang, back to where you started. Because you didn't have the awareness. You didn't have the awareness of the underlying character traits that are keeping you here. Hopefully that makes sense. The shackles of survival mode. If you think, live and do like the 2.0 version for 24 hours, the creature, the voice will lose strength. And it's the only way that you can stick to things consistently. I can give you a training program. I can give you a meal plan. But I know you won't stick to it until you do the character work. And this video has given you an awareness on the character work and hopefully some friggin' powerful ways to reframe this creature survival low mentality, unproductive mentality. Because if you're not interested in this stuff, you're just not thinking bigger than yourself. Like, remember, you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got a missus. Do it. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for them. Do you know what I mean? So obviously that's a lot to take in, right? And what we do on the longevity program is we really dig into the character stuff. It's one of the first things we actually work on. I have a resource called Think, Do and Believe, which I give my clients before we even start. And what that does is basically gets them to identify the person that they want to become in 12 months' time. And they have to write down the character traits of the man who has just achieved that goal. There's then a few other bits on how that person handles adversity, what he does in a 24-hour period, and then we reverse engineer that with the longevity program, with the meal plan, with the training program that strengthens your joints. So you can start to understand how the program works and how any really, really robust program works. But that's the longevity program. If you are interested, the link is in the description to book on a call with me to see if you're a good fit. See you tomorrow.